What is Django?
Back-end framework.
Backend framework. What's a framework?
Someone else's code to make your life easier.
Yes, that's it. Awesome. That's it. It is a back-end framework. That's the only thing I wanted you to understand. That's it. There's really nothing more to that. All right, here we go. Today we're going to talk about Django validators and tests. Tests we've already kind of covered, right? What's TDD?
Test-driven development.
All right, you got the acronym right. What is it? What's the concept behind it?
You write your tests and then you code for your tests.
Yes, that's it. How typical is it to implement that kind of coding strategy?
Atypical.
Very atypical. You're supposed to, but no one ever does it. Why? Because devs just kind of want to start coding, right? That's what they want to do. Very rarely, but typically, if you go to a good team, they won't accept your PR without actual tests. So you'll be forced to write them, but typically what I've seen is people just write them at the end. All right. So we already know about tests. Have you been introduced to validators at all?
No.
Okay. What do you think a validator does, just judging by the word?
Validate some input before you store it in a database.
That's perfect. That's exactly what it does. And that's what we're going to cover today. But before we get into it, before we get into Django validators, can someone tell me the difference? And we are kind of walking around this answer a little bit earlier. Can anyone tell me what the difference between a model and a database is? Or can anyone make some kind of analogy or comparison or description of what the difference is?
A model's a database. So it's like it models a database, so like you're not actually making a database. And in Django, you're using ORM that represents a database as like a wrapper around SQL. So,
Yeah, but in simpler terms, right? Don't define model with the word model, right?
Is it the look and feel of the data within the database, how it's presented?
Not quite.
I mean, isn't a model just the concept and the database is the actual thing?
Yes. In a weird kind of way, that's pretty close to right. I always
Damn
think
it,
of it
Tony, I was
as
going to get it first.
kind of how I think about it. I actually really like Tony's answer. How I kind of think about it is the model is kind of the blueprint, and then the database is the house. Right? So the data that's stored in a database, right, is in the blueprint, right? How the database is built, all the components that it has, right, is written first in the model, right? So that's kind of how I think about it. But yes, Tony, that's kind of what I was getting at. Okay. So we know that the model is a blueprint and we know that the database is a house. So a validator goes where? What do you think?
Probably in the model.
Why would you say that, Scott?
Because you need to know what you're basing it off of so you know what to validate against.
That's perfect. You need to validate that the data is going to be good, that the structure is going to be sound, right? They don't build houses without blueprints, right? Because what would happen if you did that?
You wouldn't get a house.
You would get a house, but it would just be.
You get something, but it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work, right? So let's just focus on that, right? You wouldn't build a house, a good house at least, without a blueprint. Same thing here, right? So we're going to implement validators to our models, to our blueprint, right? So then our database works like it's supposed to, okay? So the start code that we're going to use here is going to be this one, end of day 2. There's a small mistake that I posted in the Slack channel, so go ahead and make that update once you clone this repo. All right, but this is what we're gonna use for today's class, and I'm gonna kind of walk through it to the best of my ability. All right, so general steps for creating database models, and most of this, with the exception of one thing here, should be very familiar to you because we're only gonna add one thing. We're gonna add the validators. So first, you're gonna create the models, right? Then you're gonna add the validators, then you're gonna run your commands like make migrations, migrate, and then test the models. So far, we've been able to create a Pokemon model for our Pokedex. And this model is able to hold quite a bit of information. The next step is to implement a method of validating the inputs being passed to our models. Why would we want to validate inputs passed to our models?
Garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out. Right? We really don't want our application to act in inconsistent ways or develop some kind of bug, right? So you need to validate that the data is what you want and it meets your use case before you store it in a database. Does everyone understand that?
Say that again, please.
You want to be able to validate your data, the data that's going into your database, because if you don't validate it, your application can act in wonky ways. It can break, it can make sorting difficult, right? You can have a lot of unintended consequences then later on are difficult to debug, right? So I actually really like what Scott said, garbage in, garbage out, right? So that's why we want to always validate our data, right? So adding validators. Validators in Django are callables that check if a value meets a certain criteria. And who makes the criteria when you're adding validators to your models? Who makes that criteria?
I'm assuming we do.
We do, yeah, of course. Now there is some built-in checks, right, inside of Django that you can use, right? But that it's not, they're very simple. There's not a lot of them, right? And for your specific business use case, right, you're going to have to add validators, right, depending on exactly what you're trying to build, right? So here's an example how we will build a validator, right? If we want to validate minimum and maximum integer, we can use a built-in validator, min value validator. Let's utilize this information to add some validators into our Pokemon model, right? This is starting from what you got yesterday. Here you're importing your models. Here you're importing your validators. We're going to cover this piece in just 1 second, right? This is your Pokemon class, your model, right? And it has name, level, date, captured. And what do you notice about description?
It's got those validators in there.
Yeah, it has a validator. Notice we haven't jumped into the file called validators, but it has a validator. So let's look at the descriptions. This is models. This is some kind of text file. And the validators are going to check what? Just based on what you see in front of you. They're going to check if the description of this Pokemon is what?
25,
Minimum length of 25 and
150.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. So imagine a user that is trying to create a Pokemon, right? With the Pokemon Pichu. And the description of this Pokemon Pichu, right, is electric. Is this user going to be able to put this Pokemon in your database if the description of their Pokemon is electric?
no,
Why?
because the minimum length is 25.
That's it. And we'll do an example of that here shortly. But this is just your basic class Pokemon, your basic model. And the only thing we've done here is we've imported some kind of functionality at the top called Validators V, right? And here, right, this is calling just a method, right, on that validator called min length. And these are built in, right? But you can always create your own. And we're going to work on an example where we create our own. So there you go. This is how you would implement it in your model. That's it. What do you notice about these attributes right here?
They don't have the validator thing.
Yeah, they don't have the built-in validators, right? So just keep that in mind. Could you add validators to this?
Yeah, you could.
Okay. Do you think you could write your own validator that says, hey, if data encountered before this year, 01/01/26, reject it? Do you think you could write that validator and add it here?
Probably.
Yeah, of course you could, right? There are some built-in functionality that Django gives you, right? But if you want something unique or something that applies to your use case, you can go ahead and just write the code, right? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. So this was a pretty easy one. This is built in, right? But here we're going to talk about custom validators. So in addition to using built-in validators that we have in Django, we can also create our own. Our Pokemon model has the name field, and we only want names to be written onto the database in a specific format. And this is where the use cases start to come up. However, our name field allows for any combination of characters, numbers, and spaces to get entered and saved into the database. We can create a validator, which is a method to check for a valid Pokemon name input. Let's create a new file called validators, and you can follow along if you want. I can show you mine, but I think we're just going to walk through the README here. So you're going to create a new file, call it validators, and inside the Pokemon app folder, you're going to create this file called validators. And here, what is this in its simplest form? What is it?
A function.
So that's it. Nothing more to it. It's a function, right? That has a string error message. It has a regex, right? And if good name, which is just a match, it says, hey, grab the parameter name that's passed into this function, check it against regex, and return me a Boolean. If this is true, return that name. We're good to go. Import it into the database. If it's not, throw what kind of error?
A validation error.
Can this function be anything?
What do you mean? Anything?
Can you validate any user input of any kind?
I mean, as long as they make it the name, right?
No, think about the question that I just asked. Can I validate any user input for whatever it is my heart desires?
Can you name any user input, whatever your heart desires? Is that what
No. Listen to what I said. I'll say it again. Can I validate user input, right, in any way that I want?
No, you'd
You're
have to
hot
like set
micing.
it equal to
Sorry
user
about the
input,
family
right?
talking.
Can I include any validator that my heart desires? Can I validate that if someone tries to name a Pikachu whose third letter in the name is an A to reject it? Can I create
Yes.
that validator?
Yes.
Yes. So I can build whatever validator that I want, right? There is no
Correct.
limit to the validator that I can create. Yes?
Yeah. Correct.
There you go. That's what I'm asking, right? They gave you the example of, hey, these are built-in validators for length of a text field right here, built in. Cool. Here, they shows you, hey, right, what is this checking right here?
checking the name parameter.
Yeah, and it's checking it against this specific regex, right?
What's regex? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what regex.
It's
Or
just
I'm familiar
it's
with it.
just doing a check of the string, right? It's saying, hey, which characters are allowed in the name and which aren't. And right
Gotcha.
here,
Okay.
only letters are allowed, right? No spaces or special numbers. That's what this
Correct.
is.
Yep.
All upper and lower cases are good, but if it has any numbers or special characters, this will be false. Yes? That's it. That's only returning a Boolean. And this is just a validator that someone wrote. And then it says, hey, if that specific name has any kind of special characters or numbers, go ahead and return a validation error, right? And in the params, go ahead and send them the name that they try to input in my database that was rejected. Good? All right. So that covers the creation of a custom validator. Now we can import it and add it to our Pokemon model, right? I'm bringing in validators as V, right? I'm bringing it in, right? And what do you notice here?
Looks like
So it
you're
looks like
using the validate. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Looks like you're using the validate name function that you made in the other file against this name variable.
Yeah, exactly. Against this attribute, right? I'm checking, hey, make sure that the name that the user tries to input into my database doesn't have any special characters and numbers. Yes? This is a built-in validator, easy, but you can create your own as proven by this Pokemon name. And the rest of this is the same. Now, this is the test.py file inside this repo, right? And the very first thing that it's doing, it's only two very simple tests. The first test, right, is checking what?
You can have spaces and numbers in the name.
No, not quite. Not that one. Not the first test.
Oh, sorry, I was going to test two.
Yeah. Test one is just checking what?
If it's Pikachu,
An instance of Pokemon is being created. And in the try block, it's running this. All right, so this is kind of really misleading. There's some things in programming that like the name is like super misleading. Full clean is kind of misleading. It's just a built-in function in Django that says, hey, check all the attributes. Do they pass the criteria to be inputted into my database? Like, hey, check them, make sure there's nothing wrong with them and they're not in violation of any validator, and then put them into our database, right? So this is really just checking, hey, did new Pokemon, in this case, Pikachu, get created properly? Right? If it is, we're good.
so if Pikachu was created,
Yes, if it was created and it didn't have, what would happen to this? Which block of this function executes if description is only the word only?
Won't validate because it's got to have a minimum of 25 characters.
Exactly, right? So it would what? Hit the fail.
Fail.
Right? So this test is saying, hey, can you validate that this creation is accurate? And it is. So it should pass, right?
So my question is, okay, I see how we did full clean on that new Pokemon. How is it linking back to the validators that were created? I'm assuming it's linking back to the validators that we created a while ago, right?
Yep, great question. Right here is actually a check to the models, right? So let's go up to the model in this. Great question. Here's my model. That clean is going to check this right here. And it's going to check this too. It's going to check every single one of these to make sure that every single one of these 5 attributes passes. And if it doesn't, fail.
Straight to jail.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Hey, Guillermo, I have a question about the testing our models.
Yep.
In your accept block, that accept validation as E, looks like it's always E. Is that just a convention or is that like a requirement?
It's a convention, but depending on what kind of linters your company has, it'll be a requirement. Right.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll have you like, if you have good linters, this will actually make you be more specific because this is a really generic validation error. A lot of the times they'll make you, if you have good linters, they'll make you write it all out. And I never write them all out. I always have like ChatGPT do it, so I don't remember all of them. But this is a very generic error. And typically you have good linters, you're going to have to explain exactly what the error is.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. For right now, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Okay. Does everyone understand Jose's question? Because that was actually a really good question.
Not really. Can you explain it again?
You want to try to explain it, Jose, if you understood it?
No, I didn't. I didn't know what a linters was. That's the
Oh, no,
question.
no, not that. The question that you just asked about the full clean.
Oh, okay, yeah. So from what I understand is full clean automatically is a built-in method that goes straight to your model's build. So as soon as you call full clean, it'll go, okay, boom, it's time to check all the models in. Let's make sure this is, this checks the requirements of this data. Let's make sure that the data you entered meets every requirement for this class.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. So,
Just
if
checks
you
all
want to
the
be
models and class Pokemon.
yeah. So like if you want to be in the club, the Pokemon club, you got to check with the bouncer called Full Clean. Full Clean, the bouncer's going to check his list and he's going to be like, yo, first off, you don't have minimum 25 characters, blah, blah, blah. That's it, kind of understood it. So then
I
the
like
bouncer's
that
like, no,
analogy.
you don't meet this list under my Full Clean, so you're out the club. You could be a Beetleborg now. Go join those fools across the street.
All right. All right. Thanks, Jose.
That was perfect, Jose. Thank you. All right. So the second test, right? It says create Pokemon with an incorrect. So now this is testing a bad. So typically when you write tests, does anybody know the 2 tests you always run when you're writing tests for anything in programming? There's actually 3 things you should always keep in mind. There's a lot more to this, but the big 3 are, does anybody know? I may or may have not mentioned it before.
What was the question? What was the question again? Sorry.
When you start writing tests in programming, what are typically the 2 or 3 things you need to keep in mind? You always have to test what scenarios. I don't think I brought it up, so I'll say it right now. Typically, just at a general, there's a lot more to this. This is kind of a gross oversimplification, but I'll go ahead and mention it just to keep, so you try to keep it in mind when you're writing tests. You always try to test the happy path. You always try to test the bad path, and you always try to test the outliers. Keep those 3 things in mind when writing tests. Is there a lot more to that? Yes, absolutely. Right. But if you can just learn those 3 right now, you're going to be in good shape. Does everyone understand that? Test when your functions do what they're supposed to, test when they don't do what they're supposed to, and then test any weird edge cases you might have. Okay, so this one, test if this is going to fail, right? If the name is actually something that's not accepted, right? So here we create new Pokemon, you instantiate the class Pokemon, and what do you notice about this string that the user is trying to input into our database?
Using special characters.
Yeah, so this should what?
Fail.
Yeah, and it does. It will fail because, hey, we have a model that's going to strictly validate what?
Oh, strictly taking just the those requirements, just no special characters.
Yeah, it's going to validate against, hey, name can only be valid if it doesn't have any special characters, right? It can only take letters A to Z, upper or lowercase. All right, so this is going to fail, right? And then here, right, validation as E, assert true improper name format, and then it wants you to return this specific error, which is fine. The error here doesn't matter as long as you understand that. So the data flow here is actually really important, right? It's really, really important. So I think we're gonna do it together. All right. This is exactly, if you followed the README, you would have something like this, right? Give me 1 second. Do I want to do this first? Actually, I'm going to show you something. And the only thing I want you to do is when you look at this, just kind of think about what this test is going to test. Yes? What do you see in front of you right now?
Some functions.
But it's the two tests that I just showed you, right? In the README?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to show you one more test. I want you just to think about what this test would do. What would this test do? Just take a minute, just think about it on your own.
So it looks like instead of doing a fail, it'll reply with a statement.
What is this checking? That's the question that I'm asking. What is this test checking?
The description length.
And if that description is too what, it fails.
Too short, it fails.
That's it. And it's testing it with the Pokemon name Squirtle. Right, look at that description, a small turtle. That's not 25 characters, fail. That's this test right here. If right now,
How would it know that? Because I see, I guess I'm trying to link the two. So like I see where it calls full clean goes through the model. We know that it's gonna. We don't know. We're not anticipating right now. Let's say we don't know what the model looks like. So we're the user. We're typing in the Pokemon. We put in a short description, and we get this message. But like, what tells the full clean that it's checking for description? Is it the second statement where it says accept on line 45?
no. The full clean is the one that checks the actual length, right?
Correct. So I guess if how would it know that the fail would be the description just because the model will fail automatically because of the description? Like let's say there's another error that happens, like it didn't meet the max character of something else under that class model. Let's say it was one of the other fields. Let's say it was the regex field. Let's say it fails that as well. How do we know that? Well, I guess, yeah. How do we, what if it gets a failure in the regex and full clean just spits this out? How does it know that to only spit this out only on description and not regex. So let's say you had two errors, right? Like you had special characters in there on the Pokemon field, and then you also had a short description. But you build this here. You build this full clean. You build this here where it says try. How does it know to spit that message out only on description and not the regex?
If you have multiple errors,
Correct. Yeah.
does anyone know which one would fail first?
Be the one checking for the short description.
But what if I think what Jose's trying to say? What if Squirtle was like this?
Yes.
That's
correct.
right. All right.
Yeah.
I think this is what he's trying to say. Looking at this and based on how we went over, which error would you get first?
Regex,
Why?
because it's checking the name as string and all special characters.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain why that error is going to come out first.
Mm.
Which error is going to come out first is whatever code runs first. That's it. That's the only thing I want you to keep in mind. Don't worry about anything else right now.
But I guess my question is, let's say that you have this self-fill and then it gives you this message. What if you also have a regex? What tells you that you also have a special characters error as well?
If this runs first in your code, you will get this error first, and then your function's going to stop, and everything's going to stop. So you're only going to get this one. And then when you run it again and you fix Squirtle, you're going to get this one.
Gotcha.
Don't overthink it more than it is whatever code runs first, that's the error you're going to get, and it's going to stop.
Okay. I think what I was thinking was of the user. So I'm like the user, I'm filling out my Pokemon dude, and then I get an error message, and then is this I guess because the input's coming from the programmer, not from input user. I think that's where I'm messing myself up at.
So it's basically running the way the model is structured,
Yes.
right?
Gotcha.
Yes,
Okay.
just keep that in mind for right now.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. I was overthinking it.
Yep, overthinking it.
Putting too much grease in the skillet.
Yeah, maybe. I've never heard that, but yeah, sure. Okay, so something actually kind of important. I'll see if I try to do a good job explaining this. You ever try to fill out a form? You ever try to fill out a form on the internet and it says, hey, you need a capital letter or it needs to be this long? You ever fill out forms like that?
Yep.
And it gets red when you mess something up and it gets green when you got it right?
Yep.
Right? That check, where is it happening? In the front end or the back end?
Back end.
No.
Front end.
Yes. Well, you had a 50-50 chance, right? Can anyone tell me why they would check that immediately at the front end and not the back end? Just think about programming. Why would they check that in the front end right away before sending it to the back end?
I mean, my take on that is if it's not working for the user, then there's no reason to try to work the back end functioning of it from actually executing something from the user's standpoint.
Not
You're trying
quite,
to
because
filter the trash.
yeah, you want to filter the trash, but think about programming in general. Why is it always awesome to really just check it right at the front end before sending it to the back end? Think money.
I mean, my take on it, I think it would be backend because it would be JavaScript that limits the special characters in the length, and that's backend, right?
JavaScript is both. It depends where you run it. But okay, so here we go. I kind of like Scott's mention of trash in, trash out. So there's going to be multiple validations of user data in a real application. And the reason why they always do that initial check on the front end is because it saves you the call, right?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And calls are what?
Front end.
Well, a call is typically to the back end, but calls are expensive, right? So, hey, validate this real quick and make sure you don't send anything to our back end or in any request, right, that has the possibility of not working, right? Because then if it fails, you're going to have to keep sending it, and that's more money for us. It's an efficiency thing, but when people just talk about efficiency, they're just really just talking about money. At least in programming. Does that make sense?
All right, I'm a little bit confused.
All right, so I just asked about validation on the UI because just to kind of get you thinking about validation of data, it's going to happen in a lot of different steps. We're talking about models here, right? But we've all filled out those forms where you have to use a certain number of capital letters or special characters. That's input validation, right? Because they don't want to send any data to the backend, right? That is eventually going to get rejected.
Yeah.
Because that's just more work for the application, more compute, more resources.
Okay, got that. Yeah.
Right. So if it's more resources, they're going to spend more money, and they're trying to, at least in this country, companies try to make as much money as possible, right?
Yeah. Okay,
All
I
right.
get it now.
I only said that to kind of get you guys thinking about like data validation and how important it is, right? At multiple steps through the process. That's it. That's the only reason I brought it up. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. All right. So cool. So this tests just a simple, hey, if your description is too short, fail. Okay, so now what I want to do together before I cut you loose is I want to create a validation function, a ridiculous one. I don't want any name that starts with a P, whether it's uppercase or lowercase. That's what I want. All right, let's together, because this is kind of what you're going to do. Let's write that validator. I want you to reject any Pokemon, right, with a name that starts with a P. No Pikachus. No, that's the only Pokemon I can think of that starts with a P, honestly. So here we go. Where do we start?
Got to make a validate name function like the one we already had. We could probably just start with that, actually. Modify
Perfect. Here we go. So we need to create a validator function. Is that what you're saying, Logan?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's do it. This is exactly what you're going to do. So feel free to follow along. We're going to call it def validate no start with T. And it's going to take a what?
A name.
String.
Yeah, call it a name. Why not? It's going to take a name. And here I am going to check what?
If
P.
Yeah.
If what?
If the index 0 is P.
If name index 0 equals what?
Quotes P.
P or?
Capital P.
Yeah, we could do it that way, right? E equals capital P.
Yep.
This works? Yes?
I think so.
This works, right? That's the check.
I hope so.
All right, that works. Anybody can think of a better way to write it? You could use what? If name, you can do name. Typically what happens is you don't do the checks for both. Typically you'll handle all user input in lowercase. So you can just lower it, right? And then starts with is a method, right? I don't remember. I think so.
See, I don't know all that.
That's totally fine. Line 26 would have worked. I'm just giving you another option. So this works. This also works. Starts with P. All right, perfect. Now what do we want to do here?
Else print name cannot start with P.
We can print,
Or
but
return.
I would rather raise a validation error, right? Because I have that imported on 5. So I can raise a validation error, right? And this validation error can be literally anything that I want, but here specifically, I'm going to write a template string. It's what? Name?
Name must start with P.
There you go. Your name can't start with P hero. There you go. Perfect. Yes?
Yep.
Else? Do I need an else here?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you don't need it. Don't do anything if it doesn't start with P. Could you do something else? Yeah, you could. But here for right now, guess what? That's it. That's our validator function. Perfect. Now what? What's the next thing? I have my validator function. It's called validate, no start with P. That takes in a name and checks, hey, if it starts with P, raise that validation error. And it tells the user, hey, your whatever name can't start with P hero. Perfect. Now, what's the next step? I created my validator function. Now I need to go where?
Don't you need to put that into your test file?
Not quite. I'm not at my test yet. I need to include it where?
In the model.
In the model.
With the name.
All right. So I go to models here, right? And now, where does this go?
Line 17.
No, line 5, it would go from validators, import, validate. It would be import, validate.
Start with P?
Yes.
There you go. Line
All
4.
right, Tony.
Notice it's the
All right.
same file. It's the same file here. Validators. That function is also in there. So hey, just give me validate, no start with P. I'm gonna import that function. And that function check goes where here?
Can you put a comma after validate name on line 9 and just put that? Or do you have to?
Validators. Can you put a comma after here?
Validate name? Yeah. Can you just put it in there, or do you have to put it after that in the same format, like validators equals?
I'm gonna be honest, no idea. We're gonna try it though. Right?
Mhm.
Because it'd be cool if we could validate two things, right? What does validate name does? It validates what? Validate name validates what? That the name.
Length and the min.
Yeah, it validates, hey, no special characters. But guess what? I also want to validate what?
Starts with P if it
Starts
doesn't
with
start with
P.
P.
Also, guys, I haven't written Django in a while. I think this is gonna work, but we're gonna find out, right? I want there to be two validators. I don't know if this is the right syntax, but we're gonna roll with it. Make sense? Yes? All right. So now we have our validator function. We've imported it to our models. Now the name, not only does it check validate name, but it also validates, hey, don't start with P because I hate Pikachus. Cool. Now I can write my test. I'm going to go to test, right? I'm going to literally just copy this. I'm going to copy this, right? I'm going to copy this, and this is going to be test number 4. And it's going to be, I don't even remember what my function was called. Name, no start with P, sure. Name, no start with P. All right, cool. How do I want to test this?
Gonna make the name Pasquirtle.
Not Squirtle. I can test it with what?
No, with a P, Pasquirtle.
Oh, yes, I could have done that. I should have just done that. I just kept thinking Pikachu. All right, Pikachu, right? This I know I don't want it to fail, so I'm just going to do a small turtle that is awesome and sometimes wears shades. All right, that should be more than 25 and less than 150 or whatever the check was. Cool. All right, so here I have a test. I have Pikachu, and he's whatever, captured true. All right, so now what? We just need to change the description, right? And we have to say fail because why?
Name yes, start with P.
That's it. Right? And validation error, guys, I don't actually remember this. You can do this assert stuff. You can look into it. But right here, I'm literally just going to, for right now, just pass. Pass for now. Cool. Because again, I'm learning validators. My syntax for this try except errors are kind of rusty, but for right now, I'm just trying to focus on validators. Okay, cool. So there you go. We have created our own validator. No, start with Pete. We've imported it to our models, right? We've added it, right, to the model where it says, hey, check names. Names being created cannot start under any circumstance with a P. Now we wrote a test for it. And the example we gave is Pikachu, uppercase, right? So now when I run my test, Python, manage.py test, right? I should have, I should get what?
tests
I should have 4 tests that all what?
that run, hopefully.
Yep. Ooh. All right. Let's debug this together. I ran it and I got what?
Shit ton of errors.
Yes, but really the error is just here.
It's starts, not
Ah,
start.
there you go. See, couldn't remember. All right, so that is an error on my validator function, right? This is a syntax error, and this is exactly what Scott's saying. It starts, not start. All right, so now let's run it again. Let's go back to our tests. This should fail. I should have 4 passing tests, right? And that last test that I wrote should validate, hey, no P's. You need to catch that.
All right, so if you get a bunch of those errors, how do you know which one is like the core root causing the rest of them to fail when you run that test file?
It's not going to cause the rest of them to fail. If they're individual tests and all tests, and this is kind of like a programming thing, all functions should do how many things, guys?
1.
All tests should test how many things, guys?
I got no idea.
3 things.
No. All right, how about this? All functions should do how many things?
One thing.
1 thing. All tests should test.
Everything.
1 function.
No, 1 thing, guys. 1 thing. Come on. 1 thing. Okay, so here you notice that not all the tests fail, right? Actually, 3 of them, and it appears on my last one, passed. Which test failed here?
It says test 1.
It says test 1.
Yeah.
Why did it fail,
Line
guys?
13.
Why did it fail?
Because it ran the test file.
All right. Well,
It is a
obviously,
Pikachu.
it's a
It is a
Pikachu. Remove Pikachu. Call it Ikachu.
Okay.
Now I run everything, right?
Yeah.
And I get what?
Line 15. Oh, no, let's see.
See, that's what I'm confused
It
on. You
says
got like these 4 different errors.
It's not 4 errors. It's how many errors?
It says here line 19. That's the only one. Traceback, most recent call, last. That line 19 under test PY. So, oh, it just says self-fail. Okay. All right.
All right. So this isn't 4 errors. Let's be very specific here. Reading stack traces is actually a really important part of the job here, right? Where is my error coming from?
Test 1.
Test 1. What is it saying?
Improper name format.
Okay, improper name format. Okay.
Where do you see that at?
Might
Improper
have to
name
have a
format.
capital I.
Traceback.
All right. Let's look at our test. Let's look at our test, right? Test 1 is saying, hey, so the call right here where it says line 13 is failing, right?
Yeah.
right? When you look at these errors, guys, you want to look at the topmost error, right? That's when it starts. All right, so line 13 is the error, right? And if we look at line 13, what's happened to new Pokemon? What are we calling on it?
The
Full
models.
clean.
Yeah, we're calling full clean, right? Which validates against the models. Yes, Jose. So let's look at our models then. Models, it's saying that Pikachu here is not working. So we go to models, right? And it's saying that there's an error here. What could be the error?
It's the
So
name.
so why
Could
is
it
it
be?
saying that it's an error right there?
Let's look at the stack trace. And then, sorry, I'm going kind of long here, but let's look at the stack trace here, right? Go to the top, it says line 13. And we know when we go to the test and we go to
Yeah,
line 13,
it's running the models file when you run full clean, but then why is it that specific line in the models file?
this specific line. Oh, because this is exactly where that model is being validated, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So, what do you guys think is wrong here?
I would say the single quotes and double quotes, maybe. Do you think it's that?
No, not quite.
No start P.
No start P, right? Is this the right syntax for adding multiple validators on a line, or you can't do that?
Well, we weren't sure, so now we know it's not.
So we know that there's an issue there, right? So let's just do this new validator that we got and then figure out how to use multiple checks, if that's even possible. Don't know. All right, so now we run this. We know that, hey, maybe that's not the right syntax, or maybe or maybe it's not possible, one of the two. But now I can run my test again, right? And now I'm getting an error
Nice.
where?
Test 2.
Test 2, right? Okay, so I got past test 1. I got past test 2 is saying message edict name. What line is my error?
I think 23.
Not quite.
Is it still 25, so it's still failing on the full clean?
Yeah, it is still failing on the fluke key. So what does that lead us to believe?
That your models file is messed up?
All right, very important thing. All right, let's see how long. All right, I've been running too long. All right. Let's go. Let's see. Let's try. Let me see if I can try to simplify this. Okay. I'm going to go back here on my test. I'm going to put that Pikachu back, right? I'm going to go back to validators. No, back to models. No, yeah, back to models. I'm going to go back one here. And this is exactly, now we're back at exactly where we were. Yes?
Yep.
We're back at exactly where we were. When you get into a situation where you keep getting errors, right? What should be the first thing that I think of doing? I'm running 4 tests, and before I was running 3, right? I can try to comment out this test, right? That's the test that I created. Maybe the syntax is not right, right? And then I run it and I try to start debugging that way. Python manage test, right? Now we're getting failures, right? And I can comment this. I commented, now I only have 1 test. Let's see if I'm still getting that error. All right, now I'm only getting that 1 error. So maybe I should go back and try to figure out that error after I made those changes, right? I could also go to validators, go to models, and remove this one, right? Temporarily?
Yes, temporarily.
Cool. All right, so I've written my code. I can't get it to work, right? So now I know that my code is pretty good. There's a syntax error somewhere, right? But now I want to get back to where I get my test passing. Now I have one test that's passing. Okay, cool. Now let's go back to tests, right? I should be able to, right? I should be able to uncomment these next two tests because that kind of gets me back to where I was before I started to implement my own logic. I do it again, right? Boom, pass 3, right? So now you're here, you have a test that you wrote with a validator, and you have the option of including it in your model. What would be your next step? Because this is back to where we were, except we have the code now. It's not quite right. So how would we go about checking this?
Go to the documentation and see what it's supposed to be.
You could do that, right? But if you had to take a guess
Add
here,
the validator P to validators equal.
just add it here and just remove validators.
No. Add a comma and then the validators start with no P.
But that's what I did earlier and I failed, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
All right, so what would be my next step without looking something up? Think about it. You're here. I'm about to give you this assignment to finish it, right? What would be your next step here? What's the
I would
next
maybe
test?
change the syntax. Yeah, I would
Okay.
maybe change this syntax of how we added it. So at the end of this, either replace validate name and put the new test in there, or put a comma after the square brackets and try to put
Okay.
it there.
Very good. Logan has an idea here. Let's try that. He says, hey, man, that comma didn't work. It probably should have. Maybe it didn't. I haven't looked at documentation, but I will. Let's just try it with validate with no start with a P, right? Because that's the new thing that I created. That wasn't in the README, right? And now if I go to tests, I'm not going to test this, right? But I'm just going to make sure it didn't break anything, right? If I run it, all right, it broke something. All right, so I know that that's not really quite working. So I am going to check this right here. Notice these functions right here. Create Pokemon instance, create Pokemon with incorrect name format, right? Create Pokemon with short description, right? What do you notice about these function names?
They're describing the type of error they're looking for. I don't know, what is this? I'm lost. Never mind.
Maybe you need to add something in the parameters.
Where specifically? Because right now, notice what we're doing. What did this change do here?
Create an error.
No. What just
When you
happened here?
ran it?
Instead of checking validate name, now I'm checking what?
Validate no start with P.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm testing this only. Okay. Keep that in mind, right? So let's go to the tests, right?
Okay.
The rest will fail because it's only looking for the P error, right?
Would you like me just to keep that one and comment out these?
But we need to make sure the other one is working. We already know that the first one is working. So
I actually really like your idea, right? But let's comment out the rest and then just roll with the one we created.
Okay. Works.
All right. So what does this tell us?
Tells us our new test actually works, and then it's conflicting with the other tests.
Yeah. All right. And I'm just going to give it to you because I've ran really, really long, right? But when you write your tests, you need to be really careful how you write them, right? Because this test is causing a problem, right? If I run this test, oh, sorry. If I run this test, it fails, right? But this is a test that they wrote that it was working. And all of a sudden, if I just run it by itself, it fails, right? Let's look at the
Because
error.
is it because it's Charizard? The name equals doesn't start with P? Oh
That's
wait,
not
never
quite
mind, never
right,
mind.
but this is the
Yeah, yeah,
reason.
yeah.
All right, let's do
Yeah,
this. Let's do
I'm
this.
getting there.
Let's do this, and then I'll cut you guys loose here. Be very careful to see what I did there. Why is this? Now, if I run that test again, right, it's still failing. And the error is online.
25.
So this
Go back
test
to the models.
is not going back, right? So we need to go back to the model, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would do it one test at a time. And the crux of this whole thing is figuring out how these tests work together, right? Because the test that we created worked, right? This works. It's this error that we need to figure out. Now, actually, if I was to comment down the other two, right? Doesn't work. So why do some tests pass after I created the new one? That's up to you to figure out, right? And it really only can be in three places. Where could it be?
The models file.
Yeah, it can be models, right? It can be your test, right? But the test looks right. Or it can be your
Validators.
validator for that specific thing. Questions?
Can I take a look at the test number 4?
Yes.
Is that? Thank you. Thanks.
I will drop this in the Slack channel, right? Our test is good, right? Our test is good. You need to figure out why our test doesn't work with the rest, right? That's the assignment that I'm going to give you, but I ran super long. So we're going to take a 20-minute break. I'm going to take a 20-minute break. In that time, I'm actually going to drop this in the Slack channel. And your only job, right, is to get all 4 of these tests to work. And if you can get that to work, add one more. Add one more validator and add one more test. That's it. And then we can work on the assignment for today. Yes?
Got it.
All right, guys. Take a break. Sorry, that ran kind of long.
No, that was good. That was
Oh shit. Hold on. Can't hear you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was muted. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I have a question. What is that validators.pi? Is it inside the Pokemon app or it's outside that when we calling it?
Right. Let me share my screen and I'll have you ask that question again. Okay. What's your question again?
Oh yeah, I see it now. You had it inside the Pokemon app. I thought it was
Oh, yeah.
the other. That's why it wasn't working.
Yep. All right,
Thank you.
guys. I won't give you any more time because I think sorry I don't look at the Zoom chat. I look at the Slack chat and I have too many windows to really follow the chat. But actually, you guys got it. People in the chat kind of pieced it together. Anybody that got it, can you share what the answer was? What the mistake I made was?
Lowercase I
Yeah.
and Pikachu.
Explain it to everyone. Thomas.
The name has to be a capital. It has to have a capital. I think that has to do with the validator function inside the validators.
Yep. So what ended up happening, that was my fault. I was careless. Remember when this was Pikachu? And I deleted the P? It violated what? Let's look at my validators. How do you read that regex? And it's okay if you don't know how to read it, but it's saying that the first letter has to be a what? Front of the carrot of a regex says first at the beginning, the very first character has to be a
capital letter.
Capital letter. Can't be anything else. And that's where I messed up. And the syntax for multiple validators within a single attribute was correct. I kind of guessed because that's what I figured it was going to be. But yeah, that was the issue, right? When I was quickly creating my test and changing Pikachu, right, I messed that up, right? I should have changed this to an I. It would have been just fine. I hope that you were able to get that with any help. If you weren't, that's okay. We're going to have a chance here to work on our assignment, right? Just a brief recap after the break. If I wanted to create another validator, what's the first thing that I do? I want to create another validator. What's the first thing that I do? I'm not going to do it. I just want you to kind of think about it. Walk me through it again, because this is what you're about to do. We're here for you guys. We're here for you guys. Come on. I want to create another validator to add to my application. I want another check on the user data before it goes to my database. What's the first thing I'm going to do? We really just
Create
did
the
it.
function.
Yeah, create the function where? Create the validator where?
In the validators.
Validators. It's right here. Copy paste, new function here, right? What I want to validate. Whatever it is. New function here that validates something. Something about my data that is going where? Database, right? That's the whole point of a validator. We want to validate in the models to make sure we have good data in our database. Yes? Perfect. All right.
Yes.
So I'm going to create my validator, right? The very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to my
Models.
models. I'm going to import it here, right? And then I am going to attach it to my model, wherever it goes, right? Could it be a validator that says, hey, I don't know if you guys ever played the old Pokemon games, but I'll go ahead and ask the question. What was the highest level in the old red and blue game, the OG games for a Pokemon? What was the highest level it could reach?
99.
Yes. So have a Pokemon that cannot exceed which level? 99. Yeah, and it defaults to 1. Awesome, right? So that could easily, there you go. I just create a validator that does not let your level increment higher than 99. There you go. If you need another practice assignment before jumping into the regular assignment today, do that. Hey, create a validator that doesn't let this go bigger than 99. Because in the old game, at least, that was the case in the game. All right, cool. And then I could just create a test for it, right? Yes? Right?
Correct.
Perfect. That's it. That's exactly what you're going to do in the assignment. Let's look at the assignment. We'll work in groups today. I'll post the groups. Actually, I want you to tackle this a little bit individually. We'll work individually for like 30 minutes, and then I'll post the groups. So let's look at it. Your assignment's going to be School API 3. All right, so let's look at it. School API 3 student model. In this assignment, you will extend the application of student models fields by validating data entry to either custom or built-in validators. The built-in validators are built into what?
Probably Django.
Yeah, Django, right? And the custom validators, who writes?
We do.
You do. There you go. Alrighty, so this assignment School API 3, this is kind of what your database is going to look like. And your job will be to create some custom validators. Validate name format. Only accept a string in the following format. What format is this? Quickly, or not quickly, just anyway. What format is this?
Name case.
That's not quite name case, but what did you mean by that?
Well, it's a capital letter in the first letter of each word.
Yeah. So the first letter of each word is capitalized, right? I don't know if Python has this, but I think it's called title. Does Python have this? I don't remember. I think maybe it might be JavaScript, but this is title format. Is that right?
Yeah, it's title.
Okay, cool. So that's kind of what you're going to do. You can do title, or you can Neanderthal it. And how would you check this if you wrote a validator for it? If you didn't know something like a built-in method like title, how would you do it?
Probably split the string and check.
Yeah, you split the string, you iterate over the string, and you check index 0 to make sure it's capitalized, right? Yes?
Oh yeah, we brute force in this thing.
There you go. And that's all title is built in, yes? Yep. It's just syntactical sugar, right? That's all it is. So inside, it literally is just a split, a loop, a check, index 0. That's all it is. All right. So then we're going to validate school email only accepts strings ending with school.com, which would exclude any email not ending in this. You could just do starts with, ends with, or whatever. Or you can check if you didn't know ends with. I think that's a method. I don't even know. You could easily do, how would you Neanderthal this one?
Somehow use the wildcard.
A wildcard and?
You
use a wildcard and something else, or school.com, right? You could just have it check the last like 11 or 12 characters, whatever that is. Check, slice it, starting at the back, going 10 or 11 characters. Check if it matches this. If it does, cool. Or something like that, right? As long as it adds at least one character in front of it. Yes? There you go. That's your function for that. Validate combination format only accepts a string in the following format. 12, 12, 12. You could do a regex check here. This screams regex, but if you didn't know regex, how would you do this? I'm testing your Python knowledge right here because these aren't complicated functions, but can you think of them off the dome? You don't know regex, so how do you do this? You're validating that the string, we know it's a string, it's coming in this format, or it has to be in this format. You do very similar to the other two. You would do what? What's a brute force approach here?
Verify it's got 8 characters, and then you got to split it at the hyphens.
Excellent, Nicholas. Yeah. Do a length check. Do a split by hyphen. If it fails either of those two, it's done, right? Cast to int, maybe, or just check the numbers, right? Any variation of that would work. All right, cool. So there you go. Those are your 3 custom validators, and then you're going to run. You're going to create some tests for them. We already know based on the little exercise that we did in class, dot means test passed, E means unhandled error on the populated test, and F means it failed. You're pretty much just going to see F and dot, which is good. Questions about this assignment? Okay, someone just tell me briefly, what are they doing in this assignment? Just kind of like broad strokes.
Validating new student information.
Yep, you're going to create the validators that validate new student information. That's it for your database. All right, that is it. We're going to stop here. We're going to work individually. I'll open the breakout rooms shortly. We'll work individually for like 30 minutes, and then I'll post your groups. I'll work on those right now. I need to get my little random person generator. Okay. Any questions before I do my last spiel? Why is validation of data important?
To save money.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep. Give me some specific examples of what could happen if your data isn't good.
You'll waste the resources sending data back and forth, wasting
Yep.
money.
What could happen to your application if you load bad data to your database?
I think the word you said wonky. It'll make things
Yeah,
wonky.
it could lead to unexpected bugs, right? And kind of inconsistent application, and having your application function in an inconsistent way, which we don't want, right? Applications should always work the same for everyone, ideally, right? Yes. And
Yes.
here's a real world example. I actually got this interview question when I was at DRW, and I can't remember exactly the full extent of this interview question. I can't remember exactly, but the gist of it was you were going to use data for a dashboard, for a P&L dashboard, and this is a fintech company, right? So they said, hey, you're getting data from an API, right? And the data that you get has duplicates and has incomplete columns. What would be your first? What would be the first thing that you did with this data? So let me ask you. It was a version of this question, right? I was interviewing for GRW, and they said, "Hey, you're pinging this API. They're sending you P&L data from Bloomberg, right? Stock prices and whatnot, right? And there's duplicates in the data, and some of the data columns are incomplete. What would be the first thing you did?" Guess what I answered?
I would say delete the duplicates.
This is going to be the dumbest answer, right? I told them I would tell Bloomberg to send me good data, and they laughed. I was so young then. That was my answer. I said, yeah, I would tell them, hey, give me some good data. That's what I need. That's what I'm paying you for. And they just laughed. And they told me they're not going to do that. So how do you, and at the time I was so young, I didn't really understand what was happening, right? But that happens all the time. You pay for a server, this endpoint that's going to give you data in real time, right? So people can literally move billions of dollars around for this specific company, right? And my answer was, oh, just give me good data. And they laughed, right? So in the real world, that's going to happen. Endpoints that you pay for are going to periodically send you bad data, right? So what are you going to do? I'll leave it to anybody. What are you going to do first?
Build models. Build a model
No.
that a blueprint. Make the blueprint that the data can go into.
Yeah, that's too
validate.
big. Just I don't necessarily need the for you to kind of link it to what we learned today. But I'm just asking you, right? You're getting data from this endpoint that you need to use, but there's duplicates and there's incomplete data. What's the first thing you're going to do, just at kind of the macro level, in the broad sense? You have to do what?
Filter it.
So filter it how?
By validating.
Yeah, dude, but you're just saying words. Tell me exactly what you're going to do. I'm going to give you this data. And the first thing you're going to do is what? We kind of already walked around the answer. Someone said it, I think. You ping an endpoint, they give you a bunch of data. There's duplicates and incomplete columns. What's the first thing you do?
Remove the information you don't need.
Or the duplicates, right?
We got to be the duplicates, but then the columns that have missing information, you're not going to use that either. So,
well, no, you're going to use the information for the columns that for the columns that have the rows that exist,
okay.
Right? So the first order of business, you kind of got it right? You remove the duplicates, right? But then what do you do with the incomplete columns? Because only some of the rows are complete for that column, but some are not. So what do you do?
You merge the duplicates.
We already got past duplicates, Jose. Focus, dude. We
But
removed the duplicates. No,
Hold
stop.
on.
We removed the duplicates. We're past that. Good. I didn't even.
But you said
I didn't ask you how you removed them. I'm just going to take it at your word that you know how. You removed the duplicates. All right. What do you do with the missing information in the columns?
Well, that's the thing. The problem is we have missing information. Okay, so that's the problem.
Yes,
right.
that's exactly what I just said. Say something useful here, Jose.
So that's the problem. But what if the duplicates you removed, you said have the missing information?
They don't.
So now we have another problem. We've got.
We don't have another problem. We have the problem that I just described. All right, guys, someone use your Moodle. This is a real question.
The missing information. I have to find the information to actually fill in the blanks of what is there.
So hypothetically,
you can't handle the truth.
Hypothetically, there's a lag between you being able to do another call and get the missing information. So that's not going to work right at the beginning. Okay, so maybe you can do that. But in the meantime, what are you going to do with some of this information missing from the calls?
Say that again. You kind of cut off at the end.
You ping an endpoint, they send you information, but some of it is duplicated. Okay, you're going to get rid of the duplicates. Okay, some of the columns have empty information and those values you need. So what are you going to do in the meantime while you try to backfill those columns?
Just fill them with NA or something, blank data, just to get the info in.
I don't expect anyone here. I didn't have the answer to that question, guys. I didn't expect anyone here to have that answer to the question. This is merely a thinking exercise of real problems that you're going to face when dealing with data, right? But again, look at the scenario. This is a fintech company. They're asking me, hey, there's missing information. Guess what? Your traders and everybody at the firm needs those values now, right? P&L when the market's open is live, right? In real time, yes? So they have to come up with an answer that's going to work for their company. right? Whether it's some kind of like null value, some kind of placeholder value that says, hey, this isn't available, so ignore this, and make sure that the trader knows, or the people that need that information knows that, hey, we're working on getting this value, but right now it's NA or whatever the case may be, right? Again, I didn't expect you to have an answer to that question. It's more really a thought exercise than anything else, right? But that's why
Did I get it at the end? I think I
no,
said
Jose, you didn't,
I
but you're
said put it. I
trying,
said
so
I said
you're
put
gonna
in
be
info
fine.
to pull it down.
I'm not saying anything. Work on saying
Well,
things that matter.
we'll agree to disagree. We got it
See, you're not saying
halfway.
anything again. You're driving me crazy. You're not saying anything. All right, stop. I'm not going to stop ranting, right? But I hope that that exercise was helpful. I didn't expect you to have, but that's a real question that I got in an interview that hopefully is helpful to you, that kind of illustrates this point on how the validation of data and what do you do when there's an error in the data, right? Those are going to be real problems that you solve. Does everyone understand them? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Here's another real world problem that I worked on at AWS. I'm actually going to pause it because I probably shared too much about where I've worked. All right, guys, we're going to get started here in about 10 seconds after I finish closing all the rooms. All right, so the task was in School API 3 just to create the 3 validators, along with, if you got to it, the 3 tests. Did anyone come close to finishing or finish by chance? Anybody get halfway there, or at least get one of them to work?
I do have a question.
Go ahead,
Were
Jose.
we supposed to continue off of School API 3, or is the intent every night to rebuild the rebuild the Docker container and plug it together with Django and all that? Because I know Tiffany said earlier in the week that, hey, and I think Umar might have mentioned it, every night you're going to rebuild it every time you do a new assignment. But we did that, and I think after talking with Tony in my group, I'm not sure if that's what, because of the time, we were probably better off just going off of School API, off of the build from School API 1 to 2, and then start off with that to do School API 3. So we're kind of going back and forth, and I think we were supposed to not rebuild and go right off of School API 3 and plug in that info. Am I right in my insertion, or?
Okay, so there's no hard and fast rule here. Typically, what people do is if they can't get their old version to work, they'll typically just start at that day's assignment. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to continue on with their old versions because they work. But if you didn't get your old version to work and now you got taught something else and you're trying to get the old version to run, then you're kind of behind the 8 ball, right? So people like to start off with a fresh clone a lot of the time. So I don't even think we have an actual like directive. It's whatever you want. If your old
Okay,
version worked, you
cool.
can go off of that. If you want to go off the new one, go off of that.
No, I think we were just doing it because we felt like that was I mean, to me, we're better off that way anyway. Like, because every night when we rebuild it, we seem to pick up a new step and find something out new that so, I mean, it's only made us better to do that, but I just didn't know if we were supposed to start from 3 and then work on the assignment or just rebuild it from scratch. But
Yeah, it's
I mean,
whatever you feel the most comfortable right now, but there is value in starting from scratch every time.
okay.
That's
Yeah,
one
that's what we're
piece,
doing.
because you're going to catch something, just like you said. The second time you'll catch something else. The third time you'll catch something else, and that's how you learn, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll just keep doing the way we're doing. Yeah, because we weren't meeting time, but I was like, who cares? As long as we're getting better, that's the key. We can make up for it at the end.
That is the right idea, Jose. Look at that. You do have some good ideas every now and then.
Uh, I needed that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You don't need
Means a
validation from
lot.
another grown man. I promise you. This ain't middle school, buddy. Don't make
You're
things weird.
you're You're right. Thank you. I needed that as well.
All right, guys, did anyone get one thing that you could demonstrate, please?
Log in. Where you at?
I could demonstrate 13 errors on my test being run.
No, not 13 errors. Can we have someone that at least completed one?
Better than me. I had 15 errors.
Come on, guys. All jokes aside here, I really want someone to come up with one, but just one, right? Someone got one. I know that, right?
I might have got one
Okay.
so far.
Oh yeah, you got one.
Thomas, share your screen. Give us your one, and hopefully if you have a test for it.
I think so. I have here. Let's see. I was looking to the tests. So for the validator, I don't know if it's really working or not, but when I run the test, I set it as assert false. So it kind of clears off the end here. I don't know if it's actually working or not, though. But this is what I came up with the regex. Kind of trying to piece together the name here. And then the middle initial with a dot. And then the last name.
Okay, this is another way to do it. Good. Keep going.
And it's pretty much copied it from the Pokemon. And that's all we got so far.
Did you get a test by chance?
Yeah, the test here. Oh yeah, the test. Let's see. That was
It looks like
test
you
number.
passed test 11.
Test 11. I had to change this to assert false to get it to even work. I don't know if that's because the first error when I did assert true, it gave me one up at the top here that says false is not true. So I just changed it to true, false. So that way false is false. I don't know if that's correct or not.
Okay, we can look into that. But first, explain that try except at least.
This was already in here. To try is creating a new student object with the name. It doesn't have a middle initial. Student email looks correct. So it looks like this test is testing without the initial.
Okay, go to models then. Did you add this new validator there?
Yes, imported it from the validators. Validate name format.
Okay, question. What's the difference between text right there and char field on line 8?
Which one is it?
On line 8, what's the difference between char field and then the text, the one that you saw in the README?
Char field and like a text field?
Yeah. What's the difference?
One would be text, one would be maybe characters.
Is
I
not
don't
the
know
same
for
thing?
sure. I think so.
But you're almost not describing any difference.
I don't know the difference between char field and text field.
No worries. Char field is just shorter. Notice that length, and text would typically be longer.
Ah.
Right, there's no max length on that one. Okay, cool. So you can't tell that if this works. How would you validate that it does or doesn't?
Let's see. Maybe I can create a user and print out the information.
But that's what your test does, though, right?
Exactly.
So how would you test that line 8 works?
Okay, in the tests, there's one up here checking. I think there's one checking the name somewhere in here.
But the validator that you created is checking what?
If the first name starts with a capital,
and
then this is the lowercase rest of the first name,
Mm-hmm.
middle name, and it has a dot, So that's middle initial with a dot. And then last name. And however long it is. That's what the star is doing.
Yes, but how do you know that this works?
The tests. I don't know for sure if it works. That's saying earlier that
I know. That's what I'm asking you. How would you figure it out?
well, you have to read what the tests say.
I think
Anyone
he's
else?
asking how are you going to figure out if your validator works? So like run a print statement at the bottom of your validator with the method call and pass in something to see if it works.
Okay. Like a new student. And just like maybe we can get a new student in here. Think that would work?
Like you've got Maverick McConnell there. You could just make the second M lowercase.
Like that here to throw the student in there, and we'll test it out that way. Let's see. What if we do?
Did you rewrite current student? Like, why is that faded out? Oh, okay. Did you copy and paste it?
Yes, I just got this from the test to make a student really fast to print it. You think that will work pretty good? I don't know for sure.
No, delete all that.
Okay.
Okay, stay here. Anyone besides Thomas, how would we test his? That is validate name format validator implemented into his model works. I'm just asking for your approach here. Doesn't have to be super technical, just what would you do? Like you're sitting there, right? In front of your computer, what would be the next step here? He wrote a validator, he showed us his models, and it's in his models, he's going to validate the name format. He can just go where or do what? Go to your test. Go to your test, and which one tests your new validator? Which
believe
test
it's
should
11 right here. 11's testing improper name format.
Is that the name of your validator? Go to your validator.
Format.
It's called validate name format. So you should have the same name here. So where's validate name format?
I don't see that one there. I know I got the name from the README here. Validate name format, validate school email.
Does everyone understand where I'm getting at? Thank you, Thomas. You can stop sharing. What's the issue here, anyone? It doesn't appear that he has a what to test his validator.
A function.
All right, so he has a validator, which is a function. He has it properly implemented in the model. He's missing what?
A test defined.
A test.
Yeah.
He's missing a test that validates that specific new validator. And how I would approach this is I would just comment all the tests and work on that one individually. Because we know all the tests work before he added something, right? So comment everything out and just test your one test, right? So when you run your one test and it passes, you know there's something weird about the test then, because your test works as standalone, right? So then you can just start uncommenting one of the tests one by one until you figure it out. Now, that's a little bit of a brute force approach, but I need everyone here where you are right now to get to that. You need to be able to debug that in that manner. And then eventually you get to, hey, reading stack traces a little bit better, then you move on to that. Right, then you get a little bit better and don't make as many silly mistakes typing things out. and you get there and you slowly improve. Does everyone understand that? That's kind of where he's at. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. The only other thing that I wanted to address is Andrew, can you just describe the thing you just posted in the Slack channel? I think this is kind of important.
Yeah, Logan had mentioned that something was wrong with the test, and then so tonight we kind of anyway. So tonight I just looked into it again, and it looks like the test file has half updated code, or just when it comes to assert. So the assert underscore needs to be changed for this Python, for like the newest Python version. It won't run the test correctly, so you have to change it. I mean, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So what ended up happening to the language then that caused this issue?
Specifically?
But yeah, just in general terms, what happened to the language? So this code, this syntax used to be right, but then now some time has passed, and now that code isn't right anymore, they changed the syntax. So what's happening to the language?
It can't be run, and they call it depreciated. It's like a year. It's like, yeah.
It's deprecated, which means they're adding on to the language, right? And the syntax is changing, and the language is evolving, right? It's growing.
Yeah, it's like it's no longer Python.
Well, it is Python.
Like,
it's just a newer version.
It's like, yeah, yeah.
So awesome. So that's going to happen to our curriculum, and it's almost impossible for that to never happen. Does everyone understand that? And that's because the internet and programming languages and software engineering is always what?
Evolving.
Yeah, it's always evolving. So conceptually, you have to understand that. I'm going to show you just one last thing here. Look at my IDE. Look at my IDE. My IDE right now is running what version of Python? Does anyone know?
3.14.
Yeah, where'd you find it?
On the bottom right.
All right, right here. If you're ever curious to what you're running locally, right? This is what I'm running. Now, if I start a virtual environment, right? It's potentially that I could be running what type of Python in my virtual environment. I happen to be running the same one here, but could this be different?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So it's very possible that locally you're running a certain version of Python, and this goes the same for dependencies, right? We're in a certain version of it, and then inside a virtual environment or inside of a Docker container, right? It's different. So be mindful of that, right? I don't want to call it a problem because that's just software engineering, right? It's constantly evolving. So that's going to happen all the time. But I have seen many new developers, right, struggle with that concept, right? Where, hey, this isn't working. Why is it not working? Did you check your versions? Did you check the versions not only of the programming language you're running, but of your dependencies, right? I posted an updated version of this earlier, right? It seemed it wasn't SciComp anymore, SciComp 2. That was just old. That's why I posted that, because when I was trying to run it earlier before class, I realized, hey, that's not going to work. What's the updated one? And I had to find it to work with this specific project. Make sense?
Can you put like the Python version in the requirements.txt and handle things that way? I've noticed like if you pip freeze, it doesn't seem to do that, but you could, couldn't you?
Yeah, you absolutely could. You could put it in a specific version of Python. And actually, it's actually bad practice. This is good practice typically. It says exactly what you need to run, right? And I'm not going to get into it because I don't really know that much. But when you start looking at versions, right, all these numbers mean something, right? Like the first number will mean like a major version, and then the second number will mean like a minor version, and the last number, I forget what it means. It means something else. Make sense? So this right here says, hey, uses exactly this version where, hey, this just figure it out when you're building or downloading, right? Typically gets the most recent version, right? But then you have a bunch of other stuff like, hey, use anything bigger than, 3.31 or something like that, right? It's actually bad practice to leave it with nothing because it's just going to choose for you. And depending on what dependencies you have, right, it might break your application for the exact reason that Andrew and Logan found out, right? Some of the code that you're trying to run is a little older, and some of the code you're trying to run on the front end or the back end is a little newer, and they don't play nice together. Make sense? Now, your IDE should help you out. I try to get it with Python to work really quick. That's why I was like a little late bringing you guys in. I try to find something, but typically, if you have a good linter and like good extensions on your VS Code, I don't here because I don't really develop on this machine much. Your IDE will try to help you out, and typically they'll cross things out. Here's the only example I could find really quick in JavaScript, right? You'll notice this right here. And sometimes when you work on what they call legacy code at work, you will open an application and you'll try to run it, and then you'll be looking through the files, right? And you'll see a lot of stuff that's crossed out. Like the code will still work, but it's just your IDE letting you, the developer, know, hey, just so you know this is deprecated, be very, very careful with your versioning. Does that make sense?
Repeat that again, please. One more time.
Okay. So I tried to find a Python version of this, but I couldn't find it in the short period of time that I had. But this is a very minor JavaScript example that I found where your IDE specifically crossing this out. Now, if you ran this specific version of JavaScript, this would work, right? But the line is telling you, hey, be mindful that this is deprecated. So if you try to run a higher version or a newer version, it's going to break this function. And sometimes whole functions would be underlined in different languages, just alerting you. And if you hover over them, right, I'll tell you, hey, just be mindful this is deprecated or this is not going to work in a different version. So there's a bunch of high-speed plugins that can help you out, that can alert you to these kinds of things. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention because it's just, I guess it's just one of the other million things they don't teach you that eventually you have to figure out the hard way. Does that make sense? Okay. So the reason why I shared that with you briefly before we wrapped up is this curriculum, even if we updated it last year, right? Sometimes you run into little situations like that. Or I don't know if this happened to you yet, but if you ever try to run an assignment from like tomorrow's class or something, and you realize it doesn't quite work, it's probably a dependency issue or a version issue. Has that happened to anyone? Probably. Like you're trying to get ready for tomorrow's class or something, you try to run something and it doesn't really quite work, and you're like, wait, this should work, and it doesn't. It always ends up being a version, right? You're saying, oh, this is not quite right, or hey, is assert, true as opposed to assert in, or whatever the case might be. I don't know. I just made that up. Yes. Any
So that's
questions? Oh, go
that's
ahead,
exactly
Francis.
in the IDE under Bean, under library, under what? Can I take a look at it one more time? So I'm looking at the VMV.
What was your specific question?
You say it's in under what? You open the Bean, no, you open the library, and that's
This will tell you which one in your virtual environment. I'll tell you which Python in there you're running. Right here, I happen to be running the same thing, but this could be different. I could be running an older one here, a new one here, or an older one here, a newer one here. It just depends what you're doing. And yes, you can
okay,
adjust
okay.
them. I won't go into that, but yes, you can.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Right, and I think someone said, could you adjust the level, the type of Python inside the requirements file inside your virtual environment? Absolutely, you could. You could run 311 if you wanted. Cool. I kind of lost my train of thought there. But okay, yeah. So last thing, all right, we talked about that small versioning thing. It's just another thing that I thought it was good to bring your attention. Let me check my notes. Last thing here. Okay, They introduced you to Docker Compose, yes? I guess it must have been one of the classes. Okay. Conceptually, what is Docker Compose? It's a tool that we use for what?
Almost like a script to start your Docker container and
Oh,
everything.
okay. Yes. Right. So you're really close to the answer. So if I told you, Nicholas, what's the difference then between Docker Compose and a bash script? Because we were starting applications with a bash script before, right?
It's for multi-container Docker applications.
Okay. So an important thing to understand here is they both kind of act like scripts, but they're not. Docker Compose is strictly for managing multiple containers. That's why we didn't intrude it at the beginning. You don't really need it if you're just running one container. But if you're running multiple containers, right, then it is a tool for managing containers. That is what Docker Compose is. Right now, you're just managing one, right? But that's okay, right? Because eventually, I told you you're going to run at least 3 containers, right? You're going to run your front-end container, your API container, and then your database container. Yes? Eventually, that's where we get to. So Docker Compose actually becomes really handy, right? So Docker Compose manages containers. Is a tool for managing containers. Awesome. Bash is actually very different, right? Bash is really just what? It's just a it's just kind of like a recipe. It tells you what to run in order, right? You make brownies, it says 1, put this powder with some milk, 2, add some eggs, mix it, 3, put it in the oven, right? Preheat the oven to 400, wait 10 minutes, throw the brownies for 15 minutes, test the center, make sure they're ready. That's a bash script, right? Actually, I've never heard this, but that's a good like noob dev question, right? Someone asked you what the difference between Docker Compose and Bash was, right? You're not going to be able to guess that in an interview, right? That's why this job is so hard. And you can't really fake it, man. I know I'm kind of hard on some of you guys sometimes, but you're not going to be able to fake it in there. I know I've said it before, right? They ask you, hey, tell me the difference between Docker Compose and a Bash script, or which one would you use when? If you haven't looked into it, there's no way you get that right, right? It's like when those guys laughed at me when I said, oh, you just ask them to send you the right data. I can laugh about it now because I succeeded, but imagine had I not been successful. That story would have crushed me, right? Any questions about validators before we wrap up? Sorry, I know we're 3 minutes over. Alrighty. So in a kind of in a weird kind of thing, guys, I know validators seem easy and like managing data is actually really hard, but people like carve out really successful careers just on a very small part of software engineering, right? There's people that have built their entire careers of just cleaning data. Like they can give you some fancy title that they have, but all they do is like they pull data from an API and they clean it. And they're the dudes in charge of cleaning it before it goes into their company. So everyone can use it well. There's thousands of people that probably hold that job across big companies, right? There's a team somewhere that cleans all the data that comes in, right? And then everyone in that team uses that sweet, sweet, clean data, right? And they have an SOP for what they do on duplicates, what they do on columns missing data, right? Because in that example that I gave, a DRW, right? If it's NA or if it's null or something, then everyone inside the company has to know that it's null, right? Because when they build applications off of it, they need to account for that. Yes? All right. Sorry. Big soapbox. Have a good day.